Hey, welcome to a very special episode of Fort Wayne Footy. My name's Brian Biedenbach. I'm hosting the show here with Dustin that you may recognize. Dustin Diller, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I'm excited to get into talking about this and what the postseason looks like. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, we're here with our playoff preview with a special guest that you may see on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. Josh Patterson from the Journal Gazette is here, who's been covering Fort Wayne FC for the last, since their beginning, their first game in 2021. But he's been with the Journal Gazette, finishing up his ninth year, starting year number 10. Josh, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm doing really well. It's League Two playoffs are always just kind of a crazy time, and you'll see some stuff that you don't ever expect to see. I think it's just that urgency that builds. So it's one of the most fun weeks of the year just to kind of follow what's going on. So I'm real excited.
And as fast as the season went, we'll get into this a little bit as we go. As fast as the season went, these playoffs are so compact and so crunched together. In these next couple of weeks, we're going to see a lot of soccer if you're following the USL2 with 35 teams entering the playoffs and finishing on, is it August 2nd, I believe, is the final.
Yes, that's correct. They'll fit a truncated 3-game opening round on Tuesday. They've announced those matchups, and then they'll do the college soccer format of Friday, Sunday, the next 2 weekends to, get down to your national final, which would be Saturday, August 2nd.
Yeah. Well, I do want to get something out of the way, Josh, before we go, because we talked a little bit pre-show. And you did this intentionally, and so I got to respect it. The Columbus Crew jersey you're wearing, after, I'm a FC Cincinnati fan. We've talked about that on the show. Dustin is an FC Cincinnati fan. And as we're watching Fort Wayne FC last night, where the game's delayed, the Cincinnati-Columbus Hell is Real matchup is delayed. Mm-hmm. And we get into it. I turn it on 15 minutes in. Cincinnati's up 2-0, and we are celebrating. This is fantastic. But, like usual fashion, Cincinnati goes up 2 and ends up tying or losing a game to Columbus, 4-2. So congrats to you wearing your Columbus Crew jersey. Well earned, well deserved on the show tonight.
We'll give it to you. I
appreciate that. Like we said before, I lived in Columbus from 2010 to 2014, and that coincided with the World Cup in South Africa. And that's where I really learned to appreciate and start to love the sport of soccer. So I get it honestly, and I figured a tiny little bit of just, make it there. Not going to be brag or anything like that, but just a little subtle thing, just kind of nudge you a little bit.
No, I love it. Yeah. I love it. I actually just rearranged my space here a little bit, and you can see my Cincinnati scarves back there just over my shoulder. So anyway, we're not here to talk about Cincinnati. We want to talk about Fort Wayne FC. But before we get too far, give us a little background and introduce you. You've been with Journal Gazette 9 years or so. You've been covering high school sports. Give us a little bit of your background of what you do and what you cover for the Gazette.
Sure. Journalism career started back in early 2005, so we are into the third decade, which does not seem possible, but it's the reality of the situation. Here we are. Primarily did high school sports when I was with the News Sun full time from 2005 to 2008. Moved to Indianapolis for 2 years, then Columbus for 4, and still stayed in touch and just did some stringing and some more featurey type articles. Moved back. Continue to string for KPC up northeast corner of Indiana. 2016, the opportunity came to join the Journal Gazette, which I did in a sports correspondent capacity. So it's kind of a part-time. It's just continue to be able to do a thing that I love to do, scratch that itch, if you will. I do communications for a nonprofit. That's my full-time job, and then fit in, covering sports on top of that. So keeps a fairly busy schedule. Fortunately, my kids are cool with going to games. They've joined the supporters group. You guys being at the game last night, you probably saw my older son running around crazy down on the rail. Just kind of let them do their thing. I've got 50 sets of eyes on them, so they know full well they're not going to get in any trouble. And we can go. It's a way we can bond and have a good time and watch what's been a lot of really, really successful soccer, particularly the last 4 seasons.
Yeah, no doubt. My big question is, do your kids go home with as many those boom whackers, those blow up things, as Dustin's kids do? Because he loves giving those to his kids.
I do, yes.
I would say that they usually end up popped within the first 5 to 10 minutes. Just
okay, good. So yeah, same.
Yeah, as hard as they bang them together, I'm like, if they pop, just throw them in the trash can. We'll move on with our day.
Yeah. Brian tried to give my son, actually he did give my son an extra set last night, and thought it would be really funny, and I was like, it's fine, I already gave him one because I know they'll be popped by the time we get in the car, so no worries.
Yeah. Well, anything to make Kendra like me more.
Yeah.
That doesn't do it. That doesn't do it for sure. Oh, man. Well, hey, let's get into some talk of these playoffs. They start for Fort Wayne on Friday, I believe, in Flint, Michigan. Location has been announced, but matchups have not been announced. What can you tell us from the past, your coverage of USL2 and playoffs and Fort Wayne FC, what you maybe are expecting come Friday in Flint?
Sure. Like you said, we have found out that Fort Wayne will be playing in Flint, which was announced as one of two hosts, the other being the Des Moines Menace. Des Moines and Flint are really two of the charter franchises in League Two, so it's no surprise that they are the two hosts this season. Typically, what we'll see is they'll try to do it geographically where it makes the most sense. So my projection, based on what I've seen in the past, is that up in Flint, we'll see the Flint City Bucks. Obviously, they're hosting Fort Wayne, since that's been announced, and then we'll see Midwest United, that's out of the Grand Rapids area. That was the runner-up in the Great Lakes Division to Flint, and then Steel City FC, which is an expansion franchise to League Two, but it played previously in the MPSL, and that will probably be the four teams that will be in Flint, which would leave the Heartland and the Great Plains divisions to play in Des Moines. So that'd be the Des Moines Menace that won the Great Plains, and then Peoria City, who were the national runner-ups last year.
Oh, geez.
And then it would be Sueño FC, which finished second to Minneapolis City SC in Heartland, which was the Deep North last year.
And remind me, I believe last year was Fort Wayne FC played Midwest, correct, in the playoffs?
Correct. We opened against Midwest. We did win.
Okay.
I don't know if I should say we, trying to remain as impartial as possible.
Yeah.
Fort Wayne did win. That match went to penalty kicks, and it went 6 rounds of penalty kicks. Like I said, just some of that craziness. You play the 90 minutes. If it's tied, it was scoreless. You played 30 more minutes, and it was still tied. And there was a play where I think it was like the 70th minute where it looked like Midwest United was going to score. R.E. Briscoe had got drawn way out of goal. Defender Josh Erlinson had made a weird play, and the ball was just rolling, and you could just see it just slowly going toward the goal. Briscoe, really kicked it in high gear and made that save just inches from the end line, and then ended up making two saves in the penalty kicks, and ended up going to 6 rounds. And Fort Wayne was able to advance for the first time in club history.
That's what I thought. But you think they're going to be more in Des Moines, or you think they're going to be up in Flint?
I think what Midwest United will play in Flint. Yeah, I think I'm kind of seeing like that Indiana-Illinois border will kind of, my guess anyway, based on what I've seen League Two do in the past, that Indiana-Illinois border will kind of serve as like, okay, if you're west of there, you'll go to Des Moines. If you're east of there, you'll play in Flint.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of teams, right? We talked earlier this season. There's 144 teams in USL2. 35 of those teams go to the playoffs, which there are leagues like Major League Soccer that have less than 35 teams in the entire league, and we're seeing 35 teams in the playoffs. So there's to me, it has a March Madness type feel. Like it's just a lot of craziness, but they're long games. It's a lot of running. It's a lot of heat right now. So I would imagine is this first. I was looking at the structure. Is it 2 matches potentially this weekend for Fort Wayne? If they win the first match, they play maybe again Sunday.
Yes, that's correct. Typically, what they'll do is they'll play 2 matches Friday, like a 4 or 4:30 p.m. kickoff, and then the host team will play in that second game, just to draw more fans. Give them time to get off work, what have you, get to the stadium, and then Flint will likely be in that 7 p.m. game. As far as the opponent, we don't know yet, but League Two will announce all of this. I would guess, like with the season wrapping up today, I think there's one final match tomorrow just to let a couple teams finish out their schedule. I would guess that we'll see the brackets come out tomorrow. I would say Tuesday at the absolute latest.
Yeah. So we're recording this, just so people know, we're recording this on Sunday evening before our live show. And then our live show is going to be at 9, and we'll put this out in the morning. So if it's already been announced at that point, if USL 2 gets ahead of us and announces, just know we've been recording, before that has come out. So I would imagine, like with the heat that we've seen, just a lot of games that we've seen these guys play Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, go into the playoffs. You play Sunday or Saturday, you play Friday, and then potentially Sunday again. The wear and tear and the fatigue on the bodies going into these playoffs is going to be a challenge. What do you foresee as maybe some rotation in the lineup, or how do you think, Coach Avery rolls out this team on Friday with an expectation that we want to be here on Sunday still?
Right. The nice thing is that it's a blessing and a curse. Coach Avery's always kept a fairly tight roster, aside from year one. But year one was just Fort Wayne tried to play a League Two schedule with an NPSL quality roster, which was the goal to go in 2020 before COVID happened and all that. It's been in that mid to upper 20s range of a roster, typically what you'd see from like an MLS style of roster. His thought process is have a starter, one in a 1A, we'll say, because there's a lot of depth on this club, as we've seen. There's a lot of players up front and in the midfield that are capable of scoring. You had Muslim Umar scoring twice last night, for instance. Andrew Gerber, a recent signee that's, a center back, 2 goals with his head that we've seen in the last 2 home games, like
in limited minutes too.
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
Just got the end of the games and he's scored 2 goals already.
Yeah.
I mean, right place, right time. And he's also quite tall. I mean, I'm 6 foot and he's almost a full head taller than I am.
Yeah.
But to get back on topic, Coach Avery typically will go 2 players at each position and then an extra player on each line. So 3 goalies, 9 defensemen, and then just to fill out that roster, have like that 26 to 28. And not all of them will be active on Friday. You can only have like 20 active on a game day roster. But with these Friday, Sundays, you've got 48 hours between matches. Your depth will absolutely be tested. So it was nice to see, like in the Atlas friendly, where a lot of players, got some playing time. You saw pretty heavy rotation even yesterday, where made 4 subs at halftime. Got Andrew Gerber in, for instance. And you got several players where they were able to get 45 minutes of game time against a live opponent, and not just minutes in training. Because as we all know, like game minutes are not going to be replicated anywhere else except for in games.
Right.
So it'll be, I think you'll see probably like a standard defensive pairing in the mid, like Tiago and Reed in the middle of the back in front of Ari. And I would imagine Ari would probably get both starts. But as we've seen, there's a lot of depth and there's a lot of different matchups that you could go with. I haven't really scouted Midwest and Flint and Steel City that much. I've watched the game or so of each of them, so I've got a general idea of what they do. But I think we'll see a decent amount of rotation just out of necessity. I mean, playing in 80, 90 degree heat, running 90 minutes, and then trying to do that again 2 days later, it's recipe for cramps, even under the best circumstances.
And so talk to us, Brian and I were talking a little bit yesterday at the game when we were thinking about the playoffs, and we think about some of these guys that are college players that are, starting to get called back for college, training. How does that impact it, especially as we move forward in playoffs? Say we make it through the first week. How does that impact a lot of rosters across the board in USL2?
Well, it's handled in different ways. I will say, from a Fort Wayne FC perspective, Coach Avery he had 30 years of coaching experience in the college ranks, multiple stops in Notre Dame, Louisville, Valparaiso. So he's made just an absolute wealth of connections in the college soccer world. He's very upfront with the folks, the coaches that he talks to, says, hey, we're planning to play into the postseason and we're planning to make a deep run in the postseason. Fort Wayne FC is known for having a really good setup with their training facilities, with the amenities that they're able to offer. So the college coaches know that the players here are in good hands, but at the same time, the players here are just, being lent out by these college programs. Right. That said, there's a lot of communication just to stress, hey, here's the situation. We're hoping that we can play into the 1st of August.
Right.
And that's kind of the understanding. When you come here, you'll have to play a long time. Other places will just sign a lot of players. I know when Chicago City was here 2 years ago, talking to their coach after their first round game, he said they had played 65 or 70 different players throughout the course of a season. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat in League Two, I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
Coach Avery's tried to create an environment that's close to what a professional environment would be as possible. Right. Has been covered, at length. But yeah, some teams, you'll see them having players on their roster that have not played a minute in the regular season that'll just step in the playoffs. I know Des Moines had that with a couple players that came from League One last year that they signed just to play in the playoffs. So it's not me throwing shade at Des Moines Menace. Like, they have a long legacy of a lot of success, and they take their program very seriously. They've got a tremendous support base, with their fans and everything. But there's just multiple ways that you can do it.
Yeah. Does that impact then, like, as you look at those teams? I would imagine, and this is just me thinking through it, like, you throw in like a hodgepodge of guys that have never played together. Does that impact the quality of the teams? Like, do you see those teams still do well and move forward and progress within the playoffs, or is it kind of just up in the air?
Well, I mean, look at Flint. They've been in existence for 29 years in League Two. They've made the playoffs 27 times, 6 times in a row, and they've won 4 national championships.
Yeah.
A couple seasons ago, there was a kid, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he had played in Fort Wayne and was then playing with 1927. He played with Fort Wayne FC the first season and then played with 1927, and they signed him because they needed another striker to play in the postseason. So it can work for you, if you throw enough talent on the field, if the talent can work together enough to do something, it can certainly work for you.
Yeah.
We talked last night just about the last time Kingshammer Cincinnati came to Fort Wayne, and they had signed 2 ringers, and Kenny Walker and Corbin Bone. Corbin didn't travel with them. Kenny Walker played, I think, the full 90. 2 guys that played in USL Championship, or it was USL First Division with FC Cincinnati back then. And so just the fact that those guys were signed just before the Fort Wayne match to come up here and challenge a team that's in the league lead, a team that's going for the championship, was interesting. So it happened mid-season. It'll be interesting to watch how this happens potentially in the postseason. Because like, to Justin's point, we've seen teams that have done really well in the regular season, and then they lose a lot of their star power to college, and so now they're really not competing at the in the playoffs when that really matters. But like you said, it can work for you as well. You can sign guys from higher levels, from different teams, come in and do well. So totally different team. It feels like this is a whole new season. You finish the regular season, and I know they call it a second season a lot of times, but this really is potentially even different players on the same teams entering this second season of the USL2 playoffs.
Yeah, and really, it almost kind of turns into a third season. I would take Kingshammer Columbus, for instance. They went on a major run. I believe they had several new players come in, and they went on a run, won 5 straight matches, 5 of their last 6. And I mean, they beat Fort Wayne. They beat, I think, everybody else in the league. I think they handed Lexington a loss that was kind of a little bit of a surprise, but it's just your roster in May typically is not going to be your roster in June. It's not going to be your roster in July. So Fort Wayne has kind of created a little bit of an interesting niche in this league that you don't see a lot of places where there's just that continuity. And it's neat to see how that works, in comparison to how other clubs will run their setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that about what our ownership is doing in Fort Wayne, trying to build a team that they're looking at guys right for next year, potentially even as they move up to USL 1. They want to build the consistency. I think they've had that in mind since the beginning. And to see the success that they've had with it, we're hoping for big things here in the playoffs moving forward. We had, a little dip there with Columbus and who was it? It wasn't Lexington. It was
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah, and just
dipped
two
there in the middle.
really fluky goals. I mean, that one, that howler from beyond midfield. That's one of those things that you're going to see maybe once a season. I don't think I've ever seen a goal like that for Fort Wayne FC. Just just a player just too far out. Hey, let's try something. It worked, and a little bit of chaos, but just kind of a weird fluky thing. That said, Fort Wayne has been very, very consistent throughout the whole season, really. Maybe a little bit of a dip as far as like finishing, but the lessons, from what we saw a week ago Saturday against Lansing, and then last night, 5 goals against Lansing, 4 goals against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You feel like the club's really rounding into form.
And it's
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we were commenting last night how early in the season, Fort Wayne FC was scoring goals in the first 5 minutes of the second half pretty consistently. They'd come out, they'd press, they'd win the ball, and they'd put the ball in the back of the net early on in the second half. It seems late in the season, they've come on strong in the last 5 minutes of the half, scoring 3 last night. But we've commented, just in conversations with our crew, how many goals Fort Wayne has scored in the 85th minute and beyond this season. And so love to see the strength come out at the end. I imagine they're going to press hard in the first half, play possession, try and get a goal in the first half, but they come out strong in the second half. And so I think, if Fort Wayne stays in the match early in the game in the first half and it's still a draw or they're up a goal, I feel like they're pretty confident in their chances of advancing because of their second half style and the way they come out with strength and they finish with strength.
Absolutely. And I asked Coach Avery about that earlier in the season where, you get those goals early in the second half, middle of the second half, and now we're seeing it later. And he really explained it in a very simple fashion. It's just with Fort Wayne playing that possession style, teams are having to defend for 60, 70, 80 minutes.
Yeah.
It's been a hot summer, and some of those players just get tired, and they're a half step slower to the ball or a half step slower into a challenge. And especially like the last week, you've seen Fort Wayne win a lot more of those 50-50 balls, those long clearances, goal kicks, what have you. And I think it's just they've got fresher legs, and being on that front foot, having possession, controlling the game, they're not chasing it. I think they're just taking advantage of players that might be just that little tiny bit fatigued, and it's turned into offense. And what I think all three of us hope is a lengthy run in the postseason to be fun to see.
And as you've followed USL2 postseasons before, as you've looked at those and you see the quality of teams that, obviously you play league games and you hope your league games are quality and that you're playing quality teams. As they move forward into the playoffs, what do you see from those other teams that differ from, our Valley division, those kinds of things?
I guess I would say this year's a little bit different just because the quality of the Valley division throughout was noticeably better this year than the last 2 years. I think back to 2023. I've made this remark to a couple of people this season. 2023, it wasn't, do you think Fort Wayne will win? Do you think they'll give up a goal? You knew that not only would Fort Wayne win, they wouldn't give up a goal. I think it was like
Mm.
almost 900 minutes of league play where they didn't allow a goal. It was just, they were just that much better than the rest of the division.
Yeah.
Seeing Lexington come in, Lexington, was a roster very similar.
Mhm.
They've got the USL Championship team playing in the stadium literally 100 feet from the practice field where the League Two team plays. It's a weird setup. And I was down there in May where, there's no fans, there's no atmosphere. And it just kind of felt like, a training match, but, it counted, just the atmosphere wasn't there. So what you see is, the teams that have that better competition throughout the division, they too tend to do better, as the postseason goes on. The last 2 years, I would certainly say, I feel like the Great Lakes, for the most part, was better than what the Valley was. At the top, it's very similar between like Fort Wayne and a Flint, if you will. But the middle of the pack, you've got a lot of good, solid teams. You've got a lot of good, solid college programs in Michigan. Whereas like a Dayton, no offense to the Dayton Dutch Lions, they were much improved this year, but it's been a tough stretch for the Dutch Lions for several years now. It's nice to see them starting to turn that corner and become more competitive. Kings Hammer Cincinnati, they've been a solid team. They may not have had the last 2 years of results, but they were much improved this year compared to what they were last year.
Yeah.
So the quality of the division was certainly noticeable that it was better this year. So I feel like the division games were a better test to get this Fort Wayne club ready to go into the postseason. And, we'll see it start to play out here in 5 days.
Yeah. We brought in some guests this season, Ryan from the Dayton Dutch Lions. We brought in Tyler Crane from the Crane Kicks Lex podcast, talking about, Lexington SC and what they're doing down there. And it was interesting just to hear how the different teams, different clubs build their rosters, right? And a lot of them are local kids from local colleges that are looking for time in the summer to play. Dayton kind of builds around that with a lot of local guys. Lexington in some ways does that. Fort Wayne reaches across the country and internationally even to build their roster. And with the consistency they have, I imagine they've got a team that can go deep in the playoffs, right? They reached 7th on the power rankings, USL2 power rankings out of 144 teams. Whatever that means, like it's hard to know like what a team in California, how their roster's built compared to a team here in Fort Wayne. But I know Beasley and I know Coach Avery and I know the crew there at Fort Wayne FC are building a roster to go deep in these playoffs and to even last potentially even some of the guys even next year. So if you had to make a prediction, how deep does Fort Wayne go? Do they have a team that could win this, or do you think there's still teams out there that are going to present maybe something that they have not seen yet this season?
Sure. I think this was probably the best chance for Fort Wayne to get out of the opening weekend. Flint has a lot of history. Flint has 3 losses on the season, 2 of them to Midwest United. So if there's any, a little bit of not a decrease in talent, if you will, but this might be the year where you get Flint. Fort Wayne, bested Midwest United in penalty kicks last year. Steel City MPSL last year, first year in League Two this year. I think knowing that there's the move to League One next year, this club really wants to go on a long run. Like Coach Avery said in the post-game scrum last night, he would love to go all the way and give them the 5 best teams that are possible in the entire league, because he just loves competition. If you guys are walking to the door, he's going to try and beat you. I've used that analogy a couple times. I think with the fight that Fort Wayne FC has shown, particularly of late, learning the lessons that you learned in those 2 losses back to back, knowing what's ahead, knowing that you want to leave your legacy. I think Fort Wayne can and very well could get out of this weekend. That would probably, I would guess, necessitate a flight to if I had to read the tea leaves, probably like a Ballard FC out in Seattle, because I know they are a pretty typical host. So how do you navigate, taking a flight and flying, 3 times away? As you get further on, you're going to have good talent, good teams, regardless of who you play.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, would I love to see it? Yes. Do I think it could happen? Absolutely. Would I bet my mortgage on it? No, but I feel like at this point, you've got a club that's, firing on all cylinders, playing really well, playing super solid defensively. The offense is coming around and, starting to put the ball in the net.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to like Fort Wayne's chances as much as anybody.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Dustin told me before you jumped on that if Fort Wayne FC goes to the championship, that he was flying he and I out to wherever it would be to see it. We need to cover it, right, Dustin? Thank you for that.
We definitely need to cover it. I did not say that, but yes,
hey, covering flights, that's a gracious offer. That's
right.
Yeah, I thought so too. So too. That's why Dustin and I are friends.
Yeah.
So, well, Josh, thanks for being part of this episode and just educating us and educating our audience about USL 2 playoffs. We followed from a distance this year. We've obviously jumped in with both feet. We've been a lot closer to the team and closer to what they're doing and their aspirations and what they could potentially do, even move it into USL League One next year. So it's been a fun ride. Appreciate your offer to come on tonight to share your knowledge and your history with the team. And looking forward to next weekend, Friday in Flint. We'll find out real soon here who they play. And if anybody's making a trip up there, we would love to know. Would love to hear about your experience in Flint with Fort Wayne FC. So Josh Patterson from the Journal Gazette, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.